Just a moment.
Jesus is King.
Excuse me?
Oh, Kanye's new album, Jesus is King.
Oh, right.
It's flippin' ace.
Ace.
Yeah, it's legit. It's legit lit, you know? I mean, obviously, I can't hear Kanye the way you can hear Kanye, but, you know, I'm listening, you know? Teach me?
Hey Christian, want to jump on the Kanye bandwagon but don't know how? Want to sound knowledgeable about rap when your only exposure has been the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air? Then try Kanye Ye Can, the new app that'll make you down with all the kids. Our algorithm generates the perfect Kanye appreciation. Download the app today.
Water shook me. It's dope. For shizzle.
I haven't heard anything this hot since Stronger.
It's straight fire. Fire, 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 fire.
Kanye is like the new Cliff Richard. Cliff Richard, but married to Jordan? I've been a low-key fan, but now I'm a straight-up disciple.
I hate rap.
Does anyone know why we do what we do?
We get paid for this. Incredibly.
I wrote that this morning at about 5:30. Yeah,
we could tell.
Yeah, it's kind of the kids. The kids, they don't recognize the new time zone. So yeah,
So you're up early.
I was up early.
An early start for you.
So I thought, why not redeem the time and write pure silliness?
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's what we got.
That's what we got.
There we go.
But there's a reason behind the silliness, okay? Because I think some evangelical reactions to Kanye are a little bit like that. Like, how do we jump onto the bandwagon and not sound like grandpa? You know?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I get that.
Certainly that's been my my heart. Because I know the minute I open my mouth about Kanye, I have to say I'm not the biggest Kanye fan.
Sure.
Can you name a Kanye song?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stronger.
Me too. That's the song I was going to name.
I know these things. Yeah.
But there is this flurry of activity now because he's released his album, Jesus is King.
Yeah, long awaited. It's been in the pipeline for a little bit, hasn't it?
And so
Ninth studio album, is it?
Ninth studio album.
Yeah.
Yes, you've been Googling too.
Yeah. I just know these things.
You've been listening though, haven't you, already to Kanye?
I've listened to the whole album, all 27 minutes. Shocking.
Short change. 27
Absolutely.
Minutes. Does he still charge the same amount for 27 minutes? That's
probably.
Man.
Yeah. I listened to it this morning, and I watched. I kind of put it up on YouTube, and I got the lyrics up as well, so I could listen and kind of hear what we were talking about. I mean, it's an interesting listen, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Without giving too much away there.
Yeah, and I think probably it's the contrast that is the story, isn't it? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
absolutely.
When you contrast Kanye and his antics, BC, to what has happened since his turnaround. I mean, he's kind of claiming he's come to Christ in the last few months. That's kind of the claim.
I'm guessing so. Yeah, although, I don't know how long the album's been in production. In terms of actually writing that.
Yeah.
I mean, it can't take it long. It's only 27 minutes. So.
That's right. He rattled it off. And it's all other people's music that he just raps over, you know. It's kind of like, he is the Chris Tomlin of rap. He takes music that was perfectly fine.
Shots fired.
Adds a little something to it and makes billions of dollars. But,
yeah.
But so I think he's claiming to have come to Christ in the last sort of 4 or 5 months, that sort of thing.
Sure.
And for those, skeptical about that kind of turnaround, I did see a really interesting interview on Apologia Studios where they got to talk to the pastor that Kanye visited and who has been evangelizing Kanye. And he was a graduate of Master's Seminary, which is where John MacArthur teaches. He's a total John MacArthur. He's a black coffee Calvinist Baptist, preacher who is a straight up Bible guy.
Yeah, I'd heard the same.
And so certainly the people around him.
And listening to the album, and looking at the lyrics, I mean, I came away thinking like, yeah, there's a depth of theological stuff being said here, which is more than just, a smattering of Christian ideas thrown on the top of a track.
Yes.
There is a sense that he's clearly been hearing stuff and being kind of discipled in some way or taught.
Yeah.
More so than, perhaps someone who would just be cashing in and let's just throw a bit of Jesus on the top and whatnot.
And even in his persona, not just in what he's saying, but how he's saying things now in interviews, he seems a lot more at peace. He seems a lot more sane. He talks about that in his lyrics as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a complete different. I mean, and I said before about him. I'm not a fan of Kanye, like his music, or I hadn't really been a particular fan of him as a person, if I'm honest.
Yeah, right.
Because and I'd said a few times genuinely to people, I said, look, when I see Kanye West get up and do things, and we'll see a few things he'd said and done before in a moment, I used to say, like, he is the most arrogant person on the planet, or he is mentally ill.
Yeah.
Like there is something wrong with this guy if he genuinely, if he thinks these things, but there's something going on here.
He has a God complex.
Yeah.
He definitely does have a God complex.
But what I've seen of him in some of the interviews since, you're kind of like, oh, this is very. I don't think you could just put that on. For some kind of commercial gain.
Yes, because I don't think he's going to get commercial gain out of this.
Well, no, I'm not sure it's a smart move at all.
No, no, become a Christian, embrace martyrdom.
Yeah.
Yeah, there will be a cost, I think, to him, and already, he jumps into everything that he does with both feet, doesn't he?
Sure.
And we're seeing him jump into lots of culture war issues, and he doesn't care. He'll wear a MAGA hat and get masses of backlash, from the black community because apparently you've got to have your politics align with your skin color these days. But
sure.
But he didn't mind. I guess he's got enough cash where he doesn't need to care. He can chill for a little bit, and even if he's thrust out into the wilderness for a while. He's got a bit of spare change down the back of the couch. Yeah. But should we see some of the journey that Kanye's been on? One of the more fun moments of the last, I guess this is like 10 years ago. When did All the Single Ladies come out?
Man, I don't even know. Yeah, it's probably
10, 12.
It's probably around then, if not.
Yeah.
It might be over a decade.
I think it might be 09.
It's worrying, isn't it?
All the Single Ladies was out, and everyone was tipping that was going to be the MTV Music Award, like Video of the Year.
Yeah.
And Kanye was not very happy that Taylor Swift won.
No, not impressed.
Let's have a look at the clip.
Yo, Taylor, I'm really happy for you. I'm gonna let you finish, but Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time. One of the best videos of all time.
So,
that's probably the most famous. If you're not a Kanye fan, if you don't really follow him, I think most people will have come across that before.
Yeah.
And seen what went on there.
The thing is, he was right. He was right. All the Single Ladies was far better than Taylor Swift.
Yeah, well,
but,
well, yeah, undoubtedly. It's not too difficult to be better than Taylor Swift, is it? But yeah. But I mean, when I watched that, I just think, oh man, what a wally. Who's this guy I think he is?
Yeah.
It's very, all very well to have that opinion, but like seriously, get off the stage.
Yeah.
No one cares what you think.
Yeah. Who does he think he is? Well, in the next clip, we will see who exactly Kanye West has thought of himself as.
Oh yeah.
I am a god. Everybody says, who does he think he is? I just told you who I thought I was. A god. I just told you. That's who I think I am.
I'm standing up and I'm telling you I am Warhol. I am the #1 most impactful artist of our generation. I am Shakespeare in the flesh. Walt Disney, Nike, Google. Now, who's going to be the Medici family and stand up and let me create more? Or do you want to marginalize me till I'm out of my moment?
Or why don't you empower yourself and don't need them and do it yourself?
How, Sway?
Take a few steps back to go.
You ain't got the answers, man. You ain't got the answers.
Kanye.
You ain't got the answers. You ain't got the answers, Sway.
Kanye.
I've been doing this more than you.
It's like, I love it. It's like you ain't got the answers. You ain't got the answers.
You ain't got the answer, Feesey. This is what we need on the live cast.
Oh man.
He does have dragon energy. He does.
Yeah, sure.
He totally does.
Again, you just watch that and you just think, man, this guy. And again, I was watching that when I've seen it in the last few years and just thought, like, how on earth? Like, is it an act that he's doing? You know, it's a very convincing act if it is.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
But surely, like to me, he's like a. I used to look at the stuff he'd done like that and those kind of clips and just think like, this guy, is he a real person? Like,
is he a puppet?
He's like a walking cliche of like, you think surely no one could really be that arrogant and really believe those things about themselves unless there was something seriously wrong with them, you know?
He's a force of nature. You know, we do know people like that. Like I know people who are just like, full of beans, full of juice, full of energy. I mean, obviously, Kanye is taking it to another level.
Yeah, that's like on steroids.
Yeah,
like
it is.
Full of juice on steroids, ramped up
to
another level, though.
He does have a God complex. I am God, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I just told you who I think I am. God.
And so, you know, one of his albums called Yeezus, and he did a tour, the Yeezus tour. So yeah, there is Kanye. So if you
lost sound for a second there, we apologize. We're back.
So so Kanye went through this incarnation, shall we call it, as Yeezus, in which he appeared on a Y-shaped cross, in which he spoke from the top of the mountain, Moses style. Or I guess he wasn't really Moses; he was God.
Probably, yeah. Given what he said before,
on top of the mountain, kind of preaching in auto-tune and to the assembled masses below. But in some senses, I think he's kind of embracing what pop culture is. He's embracing what an icon is, what an idol is. Kind of, we want to put our idols on pedestals. And with Kanye, we found a willing a willing recipient of our praise. And he was like, you want to treat me like a god? You want to be idol worshippers? Then, okay, I am your god.
Sure. Yeah.
And away he went. And so he was Yeezus. And all of that is background to this recent conversion. And I think that's why it's making the headlines, that we've got somebody who's incredibly proud, somebody who has almost the definition of a God complex. Suddenly realizing he's not God. I've got a friend who he actually became a Christian because he first of all thought he was the son of God, and he was having a psychotic episode. He was in hospital, and another guy on the mental health wing of this hospital said, "Oh, it's so good to meet you. You're the son of God. Brilliant. Because I've got this question about Revelation chapter 11. I don't know really what's going on, so could you help me out with Revelation 11? And this guy said, "I've never actually read the Bible." And so the other guy said, "You haven't read the Bible, but you're Jesus. You're meant to have read the Bible." He's like, "Okay, I will." And so we went back. He read the Gideon's Bible, and he said, "I made the two most wonderful realizations a human being can make. You know, 1, Jesus is the Son of God. 2, I'm not.
I'm not. Yeah, yeah.
It's like Kanye's come to this same realization as well. You know, Jesus is king. I'm not. And in some ways, that's kind of restoring his sanity.
Yeah.
So we've got a couple of clips about Kanye having his sanity restored. The first that we're going to look at is Kanye doing like a reading at a big concert. He's doing a Bible reading from Philippians 2. And he apologizes for not knowing how to pronounce words.
Yeah.
Incredible, like, humility. And then straight after that, we'll see him on Jimmy Kimmel talking about being a Christian everything. Let's have a look.
I want to let you guys know that I'm not here for your entertainment this afternoon. We're here to spread the gospel. Philippians 2. Excuse me if I mispronounce anything. I'm a recent convert. Means I recently got saved within this year, so I'm not.
Now that God has called me and I now have given my life to Jesus Christ and I work for God.
Would you consider yourself to be a Christian music artist now?
I'm just a Christian everything.
That's pretty cool, because quite often Christian artists are asked, are you a Christian artist? And they'll say, well, I'm an artist who happens to be a Christian.
Sure. Yeah.
I really like Kanye's answer. He's like, well, I'm a Christian
everything. Just a Christian everything.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, yeah.
Because the answer, like, well, I'm an artist who happens to be a Christian, actually puts the Christian thing on the back burner. And Kanye's like, no, I'm Christian everything. So, you know, whatever he does, he jumps in with both feet.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
This could be a very good thing. And I love the humility of him saying, I'm a recent convert. And the humility of saying I get things wrong, and the humility of saying that he's had to start again. You know, in the same way that you think Jesus said to Nebuchadnezzar, a guy who was at the top of the tree, you got to be born again. You got to start again. You got to be a baby. And I see him kind of embracing that right now, and kind of he's top of the tree in terms of being an artist, and he still talks about being the greatest artist on planet Earth, and nobody can disagree with that. So
just give me a few minutes.
Yeah, sit down with Paul Feesey; he'll take you down a peg or two.
No, I mean, I looking at what he said and stuff, and there's another clip in a moment. We'll see. You know, it's an amazing transformation, isn't it, from where he's gone from to and. I mean, the fascinating thing has been watching people's reactions to it, that some people have kind of been like, but think of all the things he's said and done, you know, how can he really, you know, be changed? And you're thinking, like, that's kind of how Christianity works, right? You know, most of our New Testament, or not the most of it, but the majority of our books in the New Testament written by the Apostle Paul. And you think, well, would you not have just said the same about him? You know, when he became a Christian, there was distrust, wasn't there, initially? Yes. Ananias. Yes. Not Ananias, sorry. What's the guy's name? I've said Ananias now. That's
Barnabas, no?
No, the one he goes to.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah.
I was thinking Ananias and Sapphira.
Oh, right. So yeah, Annas on Straight Street.
Annas.
Yes.
There we go. That's it. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was distrust there, like, really? Like, this guy? But we'll see, won't we? I guess we'll
see, and we'll get on to, you know, how do we respond to such a turnaround. Sam James on Top Chat has said maybe there will be a debate in the future entitled "Did Kanye ever claim to be God?"
Yes. Well, maybe they'll say that.
I don't know. What do you think about that clip though, Sam? It did seem he did seem to be quite insistent on the point, but maybe not. But so. The piece of footage that's come out that I've been most encouraged by has been the interview with Zane Lowe for Apple Music, where they actually, you know, Zane Lowe goes out to Kanye's farm in Wyoming, which is terrific because it's just the fulfillment of a beautiful Onion article from like 2011, like 8 years ago. The Onion wrote this totally spoof piece about how Kanye, it's called "A Fully Validated Kanye West Retires to Farm in Iowa." It's just this idea that Kanye gets all the affirmation he could ever possibly need.
I'm done now.
I'm done. And he retires to a farm in Iowa and lives a small life, you know, out there. And
here we are.
And here we are.
Here we are.
And what was so interesting to me, reflecting back on the Onion article, the only way they could think that Kanye would be changed is if he got all the validation he needed, right? Is if he was, fulfilled and he got the self-love that he needed. That's salvation. That's what's going to, change Kanye. Well, no, that's not going to change Kanye. We all know how ridiculous it is to keep on wanting that self-affirmation. What really changes Kanye is being born again from above. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, he doesn't exactly retire to a farm, but he does say, I'm not an entertainer anymore. I'm not here for your entertainment. I'm here to spread the gospel. And he retires to a farm in Wyoming. So the Onion were off, in the state that they chose. But let's have a look at this great interview between Zane Lowe and some of the truth bombs that Kanye drops here.
The more that I'm in service to God, I just clear my head and just wake up more empty every day and let God do the driving and just use me as he may. Christian
entertainer,
innovators.
rapper, preacher.
Well, no longer entertainer. I'm not here for anyone's entertainment. Now that I'm in service to Christ, my job is to spread the gospel, to let people know what Jesus has done for me. I've spread it a lot of things. There was a time I was letting you know what high fashion had done for me. I was letting you know what the Hennessy had done for me. I was letting you know all these things, but now I'm letting you know what Jesus has done for me. And in that, I'm no longer a slave. I'm a son now, a son of God. I'm free through Christ. God is using me. God is using me to show off, I believe. God is similar to...
You're saying he wanted the loudest voice and the one who made the most noise to make the most impact?
Yeah, he wanted to show off. He's like, now let me take this Nebuchadnezzar type character. Nebuchadnezzar was the king. Is it Babylon? Nebuchadnezzar was the king of Babylon. And he looked at his entire kingdom and said, I did this. And God said, oh, for real, you did this? Sounds kind of similar, right? I'm standing on the tip of the mountain talking about Yeezus, saying, that's right. I did this.
I'm a God.
That I'm a God. And I could talk to Jesus at the end of my show. I had a guy dressed up as Jesus at the end of my show.
He was standing on a huge mountain on that tour.
And that huge mountain, first of all, I didn't make any money off that tour. I'm lugging a mountain around, and God said, okay, Nebuchadnezzar was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. He was still king.
Well, I'm not actually sure that he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder.
No, but probably people have looked and said, maybe there's something similar there.
Yeah. And we'll think about Daniel chapter 4 in a second, because I think that's a really interesting parallel with what's happened to Kanye. And if you're going to think of, who is King Nebuchadnezzar today, actually probably the closest thing we have to royalty today are the Kardashians anyway. And in terms of their influence. So that's interesting. But I think with the reactions that we've seen to Kanye, I see a lot of people lining up on different ends of different axes. So one axis that people kind of line up on is it's all about the conversion. Let's celebrate the conversion. And, well, wait and see. It's all about discipleship. It's all about the life lived. Yeah. And it's, I guess with conversion, people are kind of camping out in Luke chapter 15. There's more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner that repents than over 99 righteous people who don't need to repent. And so people are kind of saying, let's just, a sinner has come home. Let's just rejoice Good right news. Now. Yeah. But then a lot of other people are saying, wait and see. Why are they saying wait and see?
Well, I guess, so where would I be on that spectrum? I would definitely sit more in the wait and see. And I know I'm the kind of person who generally, when we've been in church and stuff, and they'll say, oh, so-and-so or you go on camp, so and so's given their life to Jesus.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, that's a good thing. And I probably need to be more excited about it. But for me, I always think like I think the church's issue sometimes is when someone becomes a Christian, we almost kind of go like, great, job done.
Right.
You know, and for me, I'm like, well, it's almost like someone's pulled the trigger at the beginning of the race. And there's actually now a race, you know, like, so this guy, Kanye, he's literally just started the race.
Yeah.
And there's a long road ahead. And that's kind of where we're going to see, I'm more amazed by the people who've been Christians for 40 years through the highs and the lows, and they're still clinging on to Jesus in some way. Now, I should be more amazed by the Kanye stuff. I know that. But maybe it's just because I'm such a cynic. But But yeah, I mean, I guess it's to do with the seed falling on different types of soils, isn't it?
Okay, yeah.
You know, so you look at someone like Kanye and you go, I really hope that the seed here is falling on good soil. But you just don't know, because the thing about the three soils, the one that it takes root in the shallow soil and the one where it grows amongst the thorns and even the good soil, the thing that those three have in common is they all look like they're going all right for a while, don't they?
Yeah.
So at the beginning, it's really hard to tell. So that's why, in a sense, time will tell. We'll see what fruit will come from it, and will he stick with it? Will it turn out to be a cynical marketing thing, or will he get consumed again by fame and money? I don't know. But let's hope he doesn't.
Yeah, and there is some that sprouts early, but the soil is shallow, and when trouble or persecution comes, they fall away on account of the word. And I guess trouble or persecution is going to come for Kanye in various ways.
Yeah.
So that's where the wait and see people are. So that's one axis. It's let's rejoice in the conversion versus let's wait and see about the whole life lived. Another axis that people seem to be lining up on is, I've called it the bandwagoning versus the gladwagoning. Hear me out. Okay, so the bandwagoning is people are worried that certain Christians are just really happy that a celebrity trusts in Jesus.
Sure, yeah.
And there can be a really unhealthy desire to look up to celebrities and say, oh, I guess it's okay that I'm trusting Jesus because Justin Bieber does. And that's just bandwagoning, and that's silly. And I guess there's kind of Acts chapter 16 that you've got to contend with, because there you've got this female slave girl who has a spirit by which she predicts the future, and she follows Paul and the rest of them around shouting, these men are servants of the Most High God who are telling you the way to be saved. So she's saying a lot of great stuff,
Yeah.
But actually Paul became so annoyed, he turned around and said to the spirit, in the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to come out of her. At that moment, the spirit left her. Which I'm not saying there's all sorts of things that are parallel to Kanye's case. I'm not saying he's demon possessed. I'm not saying he's a devil or anything remotely like that. But I am saying Paul doesn't seem to think that all publicity is good publicity.
Right.
Necessarily.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
At times, he tells people to shut up if they're saying things from wrong motives. So as we climb onto bandwagons and say, well, hey, somebody's saying something nice about Jesus.
Well, I mean, also, there are people who do the kind of, hey, look, he says he's a Christian. It's all good. And you're like, yeah, but then there's loads of people who say they're Christian. Like, I doubt those same people will be saying, Donald Trump says he's a Christian. It's all good. Everyone has different standards, about who they want to say it's good when they say they're a Christian and who not. So
yes. Yeah, we all want to claim Jesus for ourselves. So that's the bandwagoning danger. But I think there's also gladwagoning.
Go on, share gladwagoning with us.
Well, I'm just glad to hear the name of Jesus lifted up.
Yeah, sure.
And we had this last year with Michael Curry's royal wedding sermon. Where I think a lot of evangelicals were happy to hear Michael Curry name Jesus and talk about this God of love. But then a lot of people said, but what about the other stuff in his life?
Well, yeah, I think a lot of them were angry that a man who whose theology didn't necessarily line up with theirs gave a better sermon than most of them do on a Sunday. If I can be blunt, So.
Right. So you're very much on the gladwagoning side of things, which I am too. And I think when people hear the name of Jesus, I think there's a lot of people who just say, look, I don't know about everything else. I just love that there's a hashtag that's trending that says Jesus is King.
Yeah.
Isn't that nice?
It's a pretty weird age we live in, isn't it? Like,
It's
when you see that on Twitter, you're like, what? Like,
Yeah.
it's bizarre.
And I guess the verse for that is kind of Philippians 1, and Paul is in prison. He says that some are preaching Christ out of envy and rivalry, others out of goodwill. But by the end in verse 18, he just says, but what does it matter? The important thing is that in every way, whether from false motives or true, Christ is preached, and because of this I rejoice. That's Paul getting on his glad wagon. Right?
Yeah. And I think when you listen to the album and you look at the lyrics, as I said earlier, undeniably, there is some good theological depth in there, you know, and the things he said there, you know, I'm a son and now I'm not a slave, I'm free. You're like, that's not the kind of language of someone who, I mean, firstly, that's just good stuff to hear.
Yeah.
You know, that is good theology to be hitting people with. But also, that's not the kind of thing, I think if you've got a shallow kind of understanding of Christianity, I don't think people go around saying those kind of things.
No, right.
You know, it's that there does seem to be something deeper there.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, he's preaching good stuff.
Yeah.
From what we're hearing.
I think so. Sam James says Jesus is also pro-publicity as well as anti-publicity. Yeah, exactly. You know, the demons say, you're the Son of the Most High, and Jesus says, shut up.
Yeah. Or he says people don't go and tell anyone.
Don't go and tell anyone. So it depends. Like, it's not that all publicity is good publicity.
Sure.
But sometimes it's just great to hear somebody say Jesus is king. So there's that axis that people line up on, the conversion versus the whole life. There's bandwagoning versus gladwagoning. It's going to catch on, I promise. It'll be a hashtag by the end of the day. And then for me, like, I very rarely think of Kanye as a person, as the man Kanye West who has come to Christ. And I'm very challenged, and I'm grateful to be challenged by people who are like, well, let's pray for the man Kanye West that this sticks with him and that he sticks with Jesus, because my instinct is always to think about the culture and the wider phenomenon and the impact on the world that Kanye and his words might have. So while some people are very the only reaction they want to make to Kanye is to Kanye the individual and how is he going to go on with the Lord or not. Whereas I'm looking at a whole culture that is now, like, you saw a tweet earlier today where someone said, I've found myself in church. And
yeah, what did they say? I think I wrote it down on here somewhere, but they said, yeah, like, I'm an atheist and Kanye got me saying Jesus is king and it feels good.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
You're like, okay. Like,
yeah.
So...
And there are other tweets from people saying, I found myself in church and now I've been saved, you know, through. And who knows, that's could be bandwagoning as well.
Sure, yeah, you just don't know at the end of the day, but I mean...
But there is a cultural impact. And so is it about the person or is it about the cultural phenomenon?
That's interesting, isn't it? Because, like you say, you think, that you have the big thing of how does that affect you know, the culture and where's it hit? Whereas, I mean, we've got a comment here there. Tim Guess said, we need to pray for unto Barnabas. You know, in my mind, when I hear about that, when I hear about Kanye, I'm kind of thinking to myself, like, you know, in a sense, I'm not so fussed about his impact on the culture. I more look at him and I'm concerned that he's an individual who will get hijacked. And then we've already heard, like, someone said, like, Joel Osteen has invited him to his church. And you just think, you don't want him to fall in with false teachers like that. You want him to be taken under the wing of some great kind of biblical Christians who were... Yeah.
It'd be cool if he went and preached the gospel at Lakeside Church.
Well, sure. But, you know, you just think, like, wouldn't it be a real shame if this guy kind of had become a Christian and then was just dragged off course by a load of kind of prosperity nonsense?
Right. And if he's held up as this model Christian, and actually he has no connection to the local church, he has no connection to church and church discipline and all that, that would be a real shame. If it's just a celebrity movement.
Because, I mean, I think it's fascinating seeing those interviews with him and, you know, what he's talking about, but I just think, like, I wonder what it would be like being in a Bible study small group with Kanye West.
Yeah.
You know, like... You know, I generally find that fascinating to think, like, what would it be like to have him there in the room with you? And obviously, like, he's not the center of that group.
You ain't got the answer, Feesey! You ain't got the answer!
So I think you're finding the verse 5 has the answer, actually.
That's not the answer!
Just remember, who's God? No, I generally think that would be fascinating. And I'm kind of looking at the whole thing, and part of me is wondering as well that maybe it's the knock-on effect, I suppose. Like, you talked about culture, but then I think, like, what about the rest of his family? Because
Yeah.
his family are not known for like a Christian faith like around him. They're known for, you know, primarily for being the kind of Instagram crowd and money and fame and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I just kind of think, well, how's this all?
Yeah.
You wonder what conversations have already gone in the household and what's happening there.
Well, there is already a clip of him talking to Kim and saying, you know, I don't want you to be presenting yourself in a certain way to the world.
I've heard about that.
And what about modesty? So, you know, who knows? Who knows where this is going?
It's interesting, isn't it?
But I think even Kanye is thinking about Nebuchadnezzar, which is really interesting because I was thinking about Nebuchadnezzar as well.
Yeah.
In terms of, here is a guy who is known for his pride, who is looked up to all throughout the world, and who has this dramatic conversion. And I went back to Daniel 4 just this morning to read it again, and it's just so relevant. You know, the chapter begins, "To the nations and people of every language who live in all the earth, may you prosper greatly, says King Nebuchadnezzar. It is my pleasure to tell you about the miraculous signs and wonders that the Most High God has performed for me. How great are his signs, how mighty his wonders." And this is actually in verse. So Nebuchadnezzar is publishing like this lyrics, right? He's publishing lyrics to the whole world, saying his kingdom is an eternal kingdom. His dominion, Tom Holland, hello, his dominion, Tom Holland and Kanye come together. It endures.
It's the album I want to see.
That's right. Endures from generation to generation. And of course Nebuchadnezzar then narrates the story of the dream that he has about this big tree that gets cut down by God. And Daniel says, "No, you are the tree, Nebuchadnezzar. You've become great and strong." And then, you know, God says, "Cut him down." And then he's drenched with the dew of heaven, and he lives with the wild animals until 7 times pass by for him. That's what Kanye is referring to as the bipolar thing, right? He was diagnosed with bipolar. I was like, well, okay, maybe he would have got a diagnosis.
Sure, yeah.
And all this would happen for 7 times, maybe that's 7 years, until he acknowledges that the Most High has dominion over the affairs of men. And then his sanity returns to him. And then he publishes to the world these lyrics. And again, Daniel chapter 4 finishes with more lyrics that he publishes to the whole world. "At the end of that time, I, Nebuchadnezzar, raised my eyes towards heaven, and my sanity was restored." You know, some of his lyrics in Jesus is King is Jesus,
he talks about,
Jesus, you make me sane.
Yeah, which I think, you know, is, you know, I said earlier, like either he's hugely arrogant or he has got some mental health issues.
Yeah.
In which case, you know, actually he needs help.
Yeah.
I looked at that lyric and I thought, like, is there I think he's kind of just saying, like, yes, there have been these issues in the past and stuff. So I think it's good to see how this is, you know, Jesus has actually been at work in those areas of his life.
Right, and the Onion thought he was going to get sanity by getting enough affirmation.
Picked him up enough.
But what does Nebuchadnezzar say? "I raised my eyes towards heaven, and my sanity was restored." I love that. And then he publishes these lyrics. "His dominion is an eternal dominion. His kingdom endures from generation to generation. All the peoples of the earth are regarded as nothing. He does as he pleases with the powers of heaven and the peoples of the earth. No one can hold back his hand or say to him, 'What have you done?'" Which sounds like a lot of the lyrics from Jesus is King. And out it goes. And then, you know, there in the ancient world, that gets published out to like the 4 corners of the earth. Because the most famous man alive, he was proud.
Yeah.
He was humbled. He turned his eyes to heaven, his sanity was restored, and great cultural good came from that one individual conversion.
Yeah.
So where do we line up on the personal versus the cultural? Well, maybe we don't have to. Maybe, you know, because of that one person, there is great cultural good that can come out of it.
Yeah. I wonder, like, I mean, I what would you want to happen to Kanye? Like where, because obviously this album is a very an explicitly Christian album, basically.
Yeah.
You know, I just wonder, like, where would you like to see him go next?
Yeah,
like in terms of what he does.
Well, he's not into entertainment anymore. He's into preaching the gospel, you know. And his next album slated is going to be
Jesus is Born.
Jesus is Born, the Christmas album. I don't know.
I think so. My concern is. And it's not necessarily to say that if he does this, it's wrong. What I would hate to see is for him to be like, just walk away entirely from the celebrity world, because actually, like you say, I mean, he could be a force. It wouldn't be. I mean, because he talks a lot. He references Instagram and quite a lot in a number of the songs. It'd be interesting just to see like what would it look like to have a guy who is a really going for it Christian. What would his Instagram account look like?
Right.
You know, how would it differ from before? What will the rest of his albums look like if they're not? You know, will they be explicitly Christian or will they be Christian infused? You know, what will it look like when he goes on interviews and stuff? And I'd hate to see him just turn away entirely from what he's doing and his job, basically.
Yeah. The pastor who was advising him had to say, "No, you can rap," because Kanye was saying, "Look, I'm not sure I want to rap anymore."
It's one of the old 3-2-1 material, isn't it? You say like, you know, you might become a Christian and you know you might carry on in the same job unless you're like a bank robber or something, in which case you've already changed your job. But you know, you work you're a teacher in a school. You keep being a teacher in a school, but now you're a Christian and stuff. And I'd love to see him still going on in what he's doing, and just see what that looks like. Yeah. Because he is such a huge star, regardless of whether you like his music or stuff or not. I'm not sure there is any other. I mean, can we think of any other Christians who are that high up the?
I don't know. I was thinking Johnny Cash. Like before, like Johnny Cash in his heyday would have like a Saturday night, you know, program in which, and he'd sing gospel songs at the end of his, like he was like the biggest star, the biggest musical star of his day,
but I guess now this is even higher, isn't it? Just what we
according to Kanye.
Well, no, but just in terms of like the reach that, because with the internet and social media, I suppose a figure like Kanye is even more known than someone like Johnny Cash would have been.
Possibly.
You know, around the world.
Maybe, but maybe our tastes have become more fragmented as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Around the world.
But I mean, I think my thing is, despite saying in a sense I'm more interested in the personal side, also I am just thinking it'd be a real shame if he just walks away from the public
like MC
eye
Hammer did. So MC Hammer just became a Pentecostal preacher and he went around the place and I went and saw him in Sydney, and
as a preacher, or
as a preacher, as a preacher. It was like they passed around the buckets for the offering, and he said for 5 minutes beforehand, he said, "Let me hear you say generosity." We're like, generosity. No, let me hear you say generosity. Generosity. Wow. He whipped us up into saying generosity, and then the buckets went round. And Hammer, don't hurt me.
I can't believe you even went to see MC Hammer. What was he like as a preacher?
He had dragon energy.
Tiger blood.
Yeah, tiger blood. So watch this space. What's going to happen with Kanye? We don't know, but we like the fact that people are saying Jesus is king.
Yeah.
Because he kind of is. Yeah.
He kind of is.
Scratch that.
Understatement there.
He totally is.
No, it's
so
good.
Let's pray for the man Kanye, but let's pray that this does great good as the gospel goes out.
Yeah, I think so.
Brilliant. Thanks for all your comments on Top Chat. This will be published on YouTube, and then you can comment as per normal on YouTube. Do be subscribing to us on Facebook. And what else?
Instagram.
We
Don't give up the gram just yet. No. It's for good godly content. You can use it.
We need you on the gram.
Yeah.
And if you want to help us with our Christmas films, we've got 4 Christmas films coming for you. We've got a 2D animation, a 3D animation, a cinematic journey, and a musical comedy. And to make all those 4 happen, we need £10,000. Can you go to give.net/Christmas videos?
Let me hear you say generosity.
Generosity! We need the Benjamins. Awesome. Well, that'll do us. Yeah. Thank you, Paul Feesey.
Thank you, Glenn. It's been good.
Alrighty.
Take care all. We'll see you around.
Bye.
Bye.